Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Echelon Cycling Podcast. We are, of course, the only podcast with a Yorkshireman, a Brit, and a Dane discussing, as we've done in several weeks now, the week of pro cycling, what has been happening in the week gone by. This week, of course, Strade Bianche. I won't say the sixth monument of cycling. Don't worry, Patrick. But yeah, make sure to check out. We're also available on all the different platforms from Spotify to Amazon Podcasts. So if you'd rather listen to us, check out there. But nevertheless, I'm not doing this on my own. We have Mr. Critical himself, Ewan Wilson from the Cycling Dane, of course. And then we have Patrick, creator and owner of Audu Cycling. And we're here to dissect the week that has gone before us in cycling. And guys, Strade Bianche, the beautiful one-day race in Italy, semi-classic or whatever. I'm not saying monument. Well, Patrick, are you just going to overtake the whole podcast now because it was the Yorkshire winner?
Yeah, maybe. I thought you were going to be referencing to the sixth monument, which I made a whole rant video about on my channel, explaining why I don't think it
Good
is.
video.
Yeah, I enjoyed making it. I just hate Dan Lloyd's agenda to try and get himself into the top 10 of a monument. It's infuriating. But anyway, put that aside. Yes, Pidcock, of course, won, which meant that I was very happy. Yorkshire is now up to 3 wins so far this year, which I am going to be keeping a tally of just so that everybody knows. And it was a really entertaining race, actually. I think that everybody was comparing at the end how Pogacar went long last year and Pidcock went. Did Pidcock go longer this year than Pogacar? Is that factually correct or not? I don't really know. But Pidcock went from very far out, like 50 kilometers or so, followed the attack of Bettiol and Badjoli, and then just rode away from them on a descent of all places. I think a lot of people were expecting him to probably attack on the climbs, but it was on this steep gravel descent where he flew past a motorbike and dropped them all just easily as that. And then he just rode off into the distance, caught up to the breakaway, dropped them, and then rode off to take the victory with a lot of antics going on behind. It must be said there was a lot of Group 2 dynamics going on, which were not helping the chasing group to bring back the flying Yorkshireman who seems to be in absolutely flying form at the moment.
Exactly that. Pidcock with a strong performance yesterday at Strade Bianche, really using his abilities to his own advantage, which shows maturity and strength in a different way that we've seen before from Pidcock, distancing himself on a descent from that front group, knowing that the move from Bettiol was dangerous in the first place was also it was a good move in his half. He knew how to read the race. He could see that Bettiol was active before that. Obviously had strength, a local rider as well who knows the course. He saw Bettiol go, and boom, he decided to go with him. And I think probably the most impressive victory in Pidcock's palmarès. And I'm intrigued to see where he goes for the rest of 2023. But I've been a little bit sort of harsh towards Pidcock, maybe, in terms of not
Watch
knowing
our previous clip about that.
Oh yeah, exactly that, and also many a comment on a live stream over on the Cycling Dane main channel, where I'm never sure of what he's going to do next, what his aims and objectives are. He's a guy with a very sort of not inflated because it's warranted, but he's a guy with a huge reputation in terms of being sort of a flag bearer for Ineos Grenadiers, cyclocross former world champion, mountain bike Olympic champion. He is a big name. I feel like this win at Strade Bianche warrants that reputation. It warrants his position as a current star of the sport, and it all does kind of make sense, really. Look at the sort of the role of honor of previous winners. He fits right into that one alongside Van der Poel, Van Aert, Zdeněk Štýbar, all former cyclocross world champions. Insert any other names if you can recall other cyclocross riders succeeding. But it's definitely an impressive ride from his half, and it was actually a pretty exciting race to watch.
It was definitely an exciting race. I think most eyes, as I think all three of us talked about Mathieu van der Poel, and everyone was kind of thinking, yeah, this is 2021, copy paste. Didn't happen. He didn't really have it in the tank. And then now this new force of the Jumbo-Visma formula of just jetting in from Tenerife, pick up the victory, and then jet back to Tenerife didn't really happen. Attila Valter and Thies Benoot, not quite. Well, it really did look like they were going to catch Pidcock at one point. They were within 7 seconds, and yeah, it seemed like they just threw it away.
They said after the race that there was a breakdown in communication between them. It's the first time they've raced together, and they weren't quite communicating with each other enough. And Valter took the brunt of that responsibility. He said it was on his half. It was his fault, really, that they couldn't really communicate and couldn't bring it back. Tish Benoit eventually got the stronger result in third place on the day. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't fabulous Jumbo-Visma, which is a sign that they're not sort of unbeatable. They weren't sort of 3D printed, AI generated to be the winners of every single classic and every single Grand Tour in 2023. They have shown some faults in their armor there. So yeah, it'll be intriguing to see where they go with this and see how Walter and Tish Benoit learned from this lesson. Evidently, that probably shows that 1 week ago at Kuurne Brussel Kuurne, when they had Benoit and Van Hooijdonk in that group, it worked so well because they know each other very well. They rode a Tour de France together last year. They rode a number of races together in 2022. Both have been at the team for longer. Whereas coming into this race with Benoit and Walter, who've never ridden together in a race before, I mean, it's kind of these occupational hazards we don't think of as fans as much, but I can imagine it's what like being a pilot and you're working on a big transatlantic flight, a difficult landing, and you've got a new co-pilot you've never sort of spoken to before. Yeah, it's going to be difficult that first time round, but eventually you'll get used to it. And I think we just saw that we saw them yesterday at Strade Bianche kind of experimenting with each other.
I think it's worth noting that even if, let's say, for example, Walter did go on the front and he did bring Pidcock back, actually, Benoit wouldn't have won in theory because he was pipped by Valentin Madouas, who I was so happy mainly because Madouas signed my flag at the Tour de France last year with my botched French. So he's like an immediate, I immediately love him for that. Just great performance from him. He was looking so strong and I was just amazed. It shows that really his performance last year where he finished on the podium of Flanders, that was not a fluke at all. Madouas is a name which has perhaps crept up on people and I think he's still quite underrated. And furthermore, Groupama just in general, Romain Gregoire, I feel like he deserves a little bit of a chat because 20 years old, I think I saw a stat, he is the youngest person to ever finish inside the top 10 at Strade Bianche. I think because he is 20 years old, he finished in 8th place, which is just incredible, in all honesty. I think that Groupama, we must have said in the past about their under-23 team, just how good it is, how good their talent acquisition is. And Gregoire's just outstanding performance. I can't wait to see what he's going to produce later this year and into the future.
Exactly that. I mean, it was a fantastic day for Groupama, who I think have really showed in the past year or two that they are a really legitimate classics team with a really strong squad for the classics. We saw that with even last year. They got a podium in the 2 cobble monuments. We don't necessarily think about that much. But King Koen got a podium in Roubaix and Madouas at the Ronde van Vlaanderen. And now with the team coming into this season, Madouas, of course, an absolute star. I agree. I think criminally underrated. He finished in top 20 in GC last year at the Tour de France. That's fantastic for a guy like him. David Gaudu was singing his praises, saying that he wouldn't have got to the position he was in GC if it weren't for Valentin Madouas. It is impressive. And for Gregoire, he's born in 2003. It's a terrifying prospect. But he's a guy who's just swept up so many big wins in the past year at the junior level, a stage win at the Baby Giro, a stage win at the Tour de l'Avenir, which is the junior Tour de France, the Flèche Ardennaise, the Liège-Bastogne-Liège for juniors. It's kind of like a tick sheet, a to-do list of everything you need to win before becoming a great classic star. And with this performance at Strade Bianche, I'm super excited to see what he's going to do. Because this isn't just a fluke. He's been looking good since the start of the season, right up there at the Ouverture, the Grand Prix La Marseillaise, also at the Italian race earlier this week. Can't remember the name of it. Lagueglia, that one. Industry is still to come. But yeah, I mean, Gregoire, all aboard the hype train. He is something special for Groupama.
Well, yeah, we've kind of said everything there is to say about Strade in terms of the results. But did you guys, well, we touched on that it wasn't I think Tom Pidcock was really at his limit. I think he's such a smooth bike rider, but you could really see it like in the final moments when it looked like he might just get caught. So it was kind of good in a way to see that Pidcock's human as well. But yeah, well and truly deserved win. First ever Brit to podium in Strade Bianche.
First ever British man to win Strade Bianche. Of course, no erasure for Lizzie Deignan, formerly Lizzie Armitstead, who won the women's race.
Who's also from Yorkshire, I'd like to point out.
Is she?
She went to the same high school as me.
Claim to fame there.
Yeah, literally, she lives in my town, Otley, GP, if anybody knows that. But yeah, just saying, random.
That nice piece of information aside, But yeah, sticking on Pidcock, we covered it over in a video on the Cycling Dane channel, Ewan and I, how his attributes would fit with the different monuments. This isn't a monument, as Patrick has established firmly, but Milan San Remo's coming up. He's done that race twice, 2021 when it was his his neo-pro season with Ineos Grenadiers. He came 15th. He was very visible on the Poggio. He's now got 2 more seasons under his belt. Is Tom Pidcock one of the favorites for Milan San Remo, this chaotic race? And does history support that?
I think, well, we were saying before recording this how there is a strangely strong correlation between people who win Strade and then also go on to win Milano San Remo in the same year. It's happened, what was it? It was Wout van Aert in the COVID year, Alaphilippe in 2019, and Michał Kwiatkowski in 2017. So there is a pretty strong kind of correlation going on there. I think Pidcock does have the attributes of somebody who should be doing well in Milano San Remo. Whether he can win is very difficult because, of course, his descending is very good, so he could do a Mohoric-esque sort of thing. But it seems more and more nowadays that it's harder to break the peloton, or if you can call it a peloton, about time on the Poggio. It's hard to break that group apart at the moment. Everybody seems to be on such flying form that people attack, and some moves perhaps get off the front, but they're never quite conclusive. It seems all very like a stalemate. So it feels like Pidcock would really have to be trying to beat people in a sprint. And I do feel like, although he has beaten Wout van Aert in a reduced sprint at like Brabant-Sipel in the past, I just don't think that his sprinting is good enough to win in a flat sprint at Milano San Remo. Do you guys think that's fair to conclude?
Yes, 100%. I think if it comes to the Via Roma with the likes of Pogacar, Van der Poel, Van Aert, I think 0 chance he wins that in a sprint. Maybe not 0, maybe a 5% chance he wins that in a sprint. Yes, as you mentioned, Brabant-Sipel, but that sprint in Overijse, it's a little bit uphill. Via Roma it's flat as a pancake. It's a straight line. I'm not favorable of his chances in that way. He'd have to go solo. And I think like a Mohoric style attack would work. Does he have the pure kick to get away from the likes of Van der Poel, Van Aert? We'll find out. His attack the other day was a little bit more sort of sneaky, because Bettiol attacked initially, then about 5-10 seconds afterwards, he responded. It wasn't like he attacked when the race was on and completely distanced everybody. He just, he went away in a period where the peloton weren't necessarily going to follow every move. So definitely, I think he could win it, but I'm skeptical. I think I'd rather place a bet on Van der Poel, Van Aert, Pogacar, and the like, even Mohoric to do it again as well.
Yeah.
Would he attack before the Poggio, though? That could be on the suppressor.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We saw it last year. Pogacar tried. I'm sorry, if Pogacar can't do it, Pidcock can't.
Ouch.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point. It's a fair point. I think that Ewan's got a point.
We know he's a brilliant descender, but now everyone knows that as well. So it's not like they're going to let him go on the Poggio. There are people that could potentially keep up with him, or at least limit it to 5-6 seconds, and then.
But I think descending skills is the thing that, I mean, if you're good at descending, it's an absolute blessing because you have that pure ability to go faster than everybody else. There's nothing other teams can do to try to get him back. We saw that with Mohoric last year. He was the bravest on the descent. He mid the difference there. If you're good at descending, you will gain time on that descent. Despite how quick the peloton may go, it's down to sort of fear and skills and so forth of whether they can catch Pidcock. I mean, it's quite hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but I think like if he goes on the descent, then I think he's got a good chance to make a gap. But
can he hold that gap though? That's the thing.
Maybe. I just think it is hard because even though people knew last year that Mohoric was a good descender, but yet he's still descended away and he's still won. So therefore, people know that Pidcock's a good descender, but that doesn't really mean like, I need to pay extra attention because obviously that didn't really work with Mohoric. Perhaps Mohoric is a bit more of an underdog because they're like, he's good at descending, but we haven't really, like, he's done some good stuff, but perhaps he's not the craziest name. Let's say we could perhaps, afford to give him a bit of leeway. But yeah, Pidcock's perhaps got a bit more of a target on his back.
That is a good point.
We've seen in the past as well, riders with big targets on their back usually a little bit overmarked in Sanremo. We saw it last year with Pogacar. We've seen it with Van der Poel, Van Aert as well in the past. Sometimes they do just have that natural kick to get away. We saw it in 2020 when Wout and Alaphilippe went away on the Poggio in the COVID edition. Yes, a little bit of a different sort of atmosphere because it was the COVID edition. But in a normally positioned Milano-San Remo, the out-and-out favourite attacking on the Poggio and going all the way to the line, it doesn't happen that often. Mohoric wasn't a favourite. Jesper Stuyven was an underdog. Yeah, he went after the Poggio, but still, it's these guys who, if they can make it, even Nibali wouldn't be a favourite for San Remo, went off the front in 2018. We thought, maybe he'll get caught, and he didn't all the way to the line. So I think it is rare to see the out-and-out favourites go on their own without anybody reacting.
Yeah, literally like the last time I saw that happen was maybe like 2017 when Kwiatkowski won. Like Sagan attacked and people like went with him. Like it was so long ago in the peak Sagan era. It's hard to break the elastic.
Even then, he had passengers with him. Despite being the key favourite, people came with him. If Pidcock attacked, I'm sure Pogacar, Wout, Van der Poel, Mohoric will try to be on his wheel. I don't think Pidcock has it in him to go out completely solo. Maybe on a descent, over the top of the climb, if he tries to attack over the top, maybe he could distance the others. But I think it's very hard going into San Remo as an out-and-out favourite to try to distance yourself from the main peloton.
I mean, we might as well do a bit of an unrealistic prediction here. Where do you think Pidcock's going to finish at Milan-San Remo? Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention Fabian Cancellara 2008 before anyone puts it in the comments down below.
I'm going to go with, I kind of see a similar scenario to last year happening. I reckon it's going to get even more aggressive on like the Cipressa. I reckon that's the new trend. And I think that, probably somebody else clips away, maybe like a duo. I reckon Pidcock will sprint to like 5th.
Yeah, I would say lower top 10, to be honest. I'm not convinced.
I was going to say 12.
It's going to be a win. I just think there are other contenders in this. Also, this year going into it, there are a lot of really strong sprinters who are very hardy going into San Remo, more than there have been, I would say, in the past couple of years. Thinking of Mads Pedersen, who's really targeting this race, Biniam Girmay, Arnaud Delis. 3 really, really strong contenders here. If their teams can sort of control the race, then I think that could be it really for a sort of an escape group or a solo guy like Pidcock. And I don't think he has it in him really to sprint to a top 5 if it does come down to a bunch gallop or a reduced bunch gallop in that sense.
Check out our clip with where we discuss Arnaud Delis for Milan-San Remo favourite. So anyway, on the day of recording, there was also a race in Belgium that featured Caleb Ewan and, Ewan. It was a bit of a scandalous finish in a way, or a controversial finish to the race.
Exactly that. Today was the Grote Prijs Jean-Pierre Mozzeret, which finishes in the city of Roeselare, which has one of the best cycling museums in the world, by the way, the Course Museum. If you are in Flanders, make sure you go to that. The controversial finish to this race, it ended up in a sprint, and Caleb Ewan, well, he went early. We thought he had it. In the lunge to the line, he went shoulder to shoulder with Gerrit Pedersen of Intermarché Wanty Gobert. In the final lunge to the line, well, they weren't sure who won, but the winner was announced as Caleb Ewan. The cameras were on him. They had the on-screen graphic to say that Caleb Ewan of Lotto Destiny had won the stage. They brought him into the sort of press booth to do his post-race interview where he spoke about how happy he is to win the race and so forth. After that, well, we cut to a number of sort of overhead shots to the finish, and we found out the winner wasn't Caleb Ewan. It was actually Gerrit Pedersen of Intermarché, who then went on to give his winner's interview. This time it stuck. He was declared the official winner of the stage, and he was on the podium to get the first place prize. So that was a sort of scandalous finish. Once again, Caleb Ewan being involved in a photo finish that was almost too close to call. But a big win for Gerrit Pedersen. Don't take anything away from that.
I was just thinking about, wasn't Caleb Ewan involved in another
UAE
dash to the
Tour?
line? Oh, yeah, UAE Tour. But I was also thinking, wasn't it Giro last year against I swear there was a sprint finish against Demar where he just about lost as well. Caleb Ewan just has a bit of a reputation for these close finishes, basically. Just winning by like the tiniest amount, which is really unfortunate. It seems to happen quite a lot to him, but he is still one of the best sprinters in the world. And, it's a great win actually for Intermarché. They just keep on racking up good results this year so far. It must be because of what Scott said to him. That must be the only reasoning.
Great team presentation by them. But focusing on Caleb Ewan, we all know he's, as you said, such an accomplished sprinter. But what is really happening with him? He's not really taken any victories. He's taken the Sable Classic, yes, but he hasn't taken a single road stage victory this year. We know they've gone down to Pro Continental, but that doesn't really affect the racing for them. Yeah, now Arnaud Delis as well is becoming this huge force as well, and it's a Belgian team. Is there something wrong, or is it just early season, a bit like we saw with Mark Cavendish? He takes a few races and then he hits the ground running when he gets to the races that he's really targeting.
I mean, there seems to be the second year really of Caleb Ewan feeling underwhelming. He had a lot of bad luck in 2022. He had some bad luck as well in 2021 when he crashed out on the sprint finish to Pontivy. I think that sort of began the bad luck for Caleb Ewan. And there was a lot of pressure in his back last year to gain points for this squad, and it didn't quite work in his favor. Missed out on a number of big targets in the year. And beginning this year as well, just missing that sort of top speed. He used to be this pocket rocket that was unbeatable once he got to his top speed, but now just missing that killer kick from Caleb Ewan, who was a staple at sort of the World Tour sprinting level. And I think today showed that, even though he went out, we thought he was really on sort of, he had a clear line to the finish, had a decent lead out from his squad, who have been performing well as a whole. And then he just gets overhauled by Hedibitation in the final couple of meters to the line. It is clearly demoralizing for him. He knows that sort of the torch is being passed across to Arnaud Delis and the team. He's definitely got more momentum and more hype in 2023. We're talking him up as a Milano Sanremo favorite, despite the fact Caleb Ewan's finished on the podium a number of times in the past. We're sort of overshadowing the Australians' chances there. And I think as well, what's most important about Caleb Ewan and this sort of poor start to the season is the mentality for sprinters. You mentioned with Cavendish there. Sometimes with these sprinters, it's a big ego game. It's the most sort of primal and primitive form of cycling. Who can go the quickest? You see it in like 100-meter sprinting as well. Once you get that big win, yes, you are the big I am. You feel strong. You want to keep that ball rolling. Your team is motivated to keep you going. And then boom, you have that confidence to know that you can sprint and win. Caleb hasn't had that in a top UCI World Tour level race in a long time. So I think maybe he's missing that sort of mentality kick to go all the way and to regain that top level speed and to gain the prestige he's had in so many years. Don't forget, just after the COVID break, we were saying Caleb Ewan is probably the best sprinter in the world. And now he's a bit of an afterthought, even within his own team.
It is strange, isn't it? Because, yeah, he did used to be just one of the absolute premier sprinters in the world. I remember back in the Mitchelton Scott days, the ridiculously low position that he had, that was always taking headlines of how close his chin was to the front wheel. It just hasn't been clicking with him for the last few years. I'm not even sure if it's a thing to do with his lead out. He's never really been a rider which strictly goes, you know, like the old days, you know, of like HJC and stuff like that, where they're just like, we're gonna drill it and then our sprinter's just gonna go off a lead out man and he's just gonna win easy. Caleb's always quite a he improvises quite well as a sprinter. That's always been his kind of style. So I'm not even sure if it's really a thing to do with lead out really, although maybe he's, you know, perhaps like ever since, like he just perhaps doesn't mix with his lead out men. I know that Lotto have really mixed in some new lead out men. They've lost some, they've gained some, and perhaps things just aren't working. I'm not really sure.
But then he's worked so well with Roger Kluger in the past. He's still there. They've also thrown in Jacopo Guarnieri as well this year. Really great lead-out man for Arnaud Démare in the past. So, I mean, I don't quite get it. It's not like anything huge has changed. Like, he's still got a very similar lead-out, but he just can't seem to follow them. Look at his results from last year's Tour de France. 2 top 10s, and he finished the race. He rode all 21 days and only finished in top 10 twice. His best result being in 8th place on the stage into Sonnebord. I'm really sort of confused by this. I don't quite understand. He just hasn't been anywhere near really winning. Okay, fair enough with Tim earlier at the UAE Tour, but we haven't seen consistent and reliable Caleb Ewan. He's a guy who's won UAE Tour stages, boom, boom, boom in the past. He's reliable there, and he's missed it. Even with the Lotto Soudal's team, or Lotto Destiny as they're now called, he's done well in certain races in the past, and it's just not working here.
I think the last time I really saw peak sort of Caleb Ewan was 2019, where he won 3 stages of the Tour and 2 stages of the Giro. I think maybe something to do with his, I don't know if it's just this is just crazy, just whatever thinking. But he had this whole thing of he wanted to win a stage of every Grand Tour in a year. Do you remember that being a thing
Yeah,
which he wanted to
that's
do?
a
I
lot
feel
of
like
pressure.
I can't remember when he first mentioned that, but it feels like ever since then things have just derailed. Or is that just me making things up in my own head?
I mean, it was 2021. He definitely wanted to go for it. He dominated the sprint of the Giro and then randomly abandoned, if you recall, from the 2021 edition. Then went to the Tour de France, crashed out in Pontivy, didn't start the next day, and then didn't go to the Volta a España as well. So maybe that's also the problem. There's also been a lot of pressure on his shoulders for Milan San Remo. Remember the whole Caleb Ewan King of the Mountains sort of meme in 2021 when he was riding really strongly in Sanremo following like Van der Poel and Van Aert up the hills. And we thought, man, Caleb Ewan, world domination. That was only 2 years ago. And now he's just sort of faded away. And the little Wallonian bull has taken his place at the top of the rankings at Lotto Destiny. Do you think it's demoralizing for him to be on a pro-continental level now?
I think more Dilly is the elephant in the room. Well, we mentioned him.
But then they don't really race the same races.
Yeah, but if you know you're not the man anymore in your team, suddenly this 20-year-old Belgian kid is just like destroying world cycling. Can't be great for the ego.
It's difficult, to be honest, because they're evidently Lotto Destiny have been one of the best teams this year so far in terms of, sort of their resources. Arnaud Delis performing well. Milan Menta won early this week at Le Samin. They've got a really strong start to 2023, but Caleb's just missing the mark.
I just think it's also a thing that there are so many great sprinters nowadays.
I was going to mention that.
You've got Merlier, Jakobsen, Groenewegen, Bennett, Philipsen, and now like Welsford's actually stepping up to be really good as well. That's like 6 guys who at the moment I'm kind of putting on a similar, if not higher level than Caleb. I just think the quality of sprinting is really high at the moment, which is a great thing.
Also, I mean, this shouldn't take away. I mean, I bigged them up a lot in our Intermarché season preview. I said Herbert Tayson's going to win a big race this year. And I think this shows that Herbert Tayson has also taken a big step up. He beat both Caleb Ewan and Sam Welsford here. Herbert is a guy who's performed really well. He won a Tour of Poland stage last year, crashed out of the Vuelta a España during the Grande Par, missed the mark there. But he's got big goals for the season, and he's another one of these good Intermarché reliable sprinters who's emerging through the ranks. And it's good to see him performing at this top level as well, and sort of showing a very different approach within Intermarché to Lotto Destiny.
So obviously we're recording on the Sunday and we're releasing on the Monday, and one of the most prestigious 1 week stage races, Race to the Sun, Paris-Nice is starting, and this year it's got the last 2 winners of the Tour de France, Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard in there. But stage 1, what kind of happened there? Does it tell us anything about the sprinting game?
Well, stage 1 took the riders around the little village of Verrières. There was a breakaway early on, but didn't come to anything. But things really kicked off with roughly 20-30 kilometers to go on the Category 4 climb. The Côte de l'Amiens-la-Chapelle. There we saw Nilson Paulus really ignite affairs for the GC guys. He wanted to get the King of the Mountains points. So he attacked off the front. Pogacar followed, and what ensued was sort of amuse-bouche of the GC battle. We saw a small group emerge. Vingegaard involved as well, but he was isolated in this front group of 25 or so riders. They went out on their own for roughly 10 kilometers before Soudal Quickstep got their act together and chased them back. However, on the bonus second hill sprint, which offered 6 bonus seconds at the Côte de 17 Tournant, there we saw Pogacar attack again and make a small gap with him, Pierre Latour, and Jonas Vingegaard. But Pogacar therefore gained 6 bonus seconds, whilst Vingegaard gained nothing. That trio went out ahead for a while before sort of Pogacar looked at Vingegaard, who wasn't pacing. They decided to sit up with 5 kilometers to go and let Pierre Latour try to get a stage win on his own. Spoiler alert, he didn't get the stage win. Soudal Quickstep pulled back in the final couple of kilometers. Tim Merlier surfed the wheels and pushed through to take the stage win ahead of Sam Bennett and Mads Pedersen.
That was like an insert of you in recap mode there in the Echelon cycling podcast. So I appreciate that, guys. But yeah, Tim Merlier, is he the best sprinter now in the world?
Gosh, tricky. That's hard to say. I'd say based off of current results, yes, because of how he was going in the UAE Tour as well. He picked up 2 stage wins there, if I'm not mistaken. Therefore, this stage win here, ahead of some strong sprinters as well, probably does put him as the favourite? Am I really missing somebody? I just don't feel like Jakobsen and Philipsen are not. Well, not what are they alive? What's going on there? Like I don't know where they are. They're going to Tirreno, but I'd really consider that Philipsen was probably one of the best, if not the best sprinter from last year, and he hasn't really hit the heights. I think that Merlier probably is the best sprinter in the world right now.
Right now, yes, I would say right now. But historically, I mean, I would say over the past 12 months, if we're looking at it from a sort of who is the best sprinter, Jakobsen and Phillips, I would say, are probably stronger. Tim O'Lear, towards the end of last year, was struggling really to contend for Vuelta stage victories, fighting against Fred Wright and Maz Payson in a sprint.
Quick step effect.
Yeah, exactly. It probably is the quick step effect. The past 3 stage races Tim O'Lear started, he's won the opening stage at Oman, UAE, and now Paris-Nice, which is a very, very strong statistic to have to your name. And it shows that he's clicking with the team. It takes some people some time, particularly in a sprinting lead out, where you have to have a lot of faith in your lead out men and these guys to position you in a good place. Tim Merlius jumped into the team, and it's worked very well. And at this race, we had a number of the sort of A-list sprinting guys. Tim de Klerk doing a lot of work, also with Sénéchal and Yves Lampart. It really was the sort of top-tier quick-step lead-out, and it worked for Merlier. Probably at the moment, yes, he's in the best position. He's in the best team. But going forward, can he keep this momentum for the rest of the year? We'll find out.
I mean, he's not down for the Giro or the Tour de France right now on his provisional calendar.
He doesn't fit into the Giro lineup with
yeah, obviously. But would you take him over? Well, if we're saying we're getting closer to the Tour, you've had this phenomenal success with Tim Merlier. He's won a Tour stage before. Would you not take him instead of Jakobsen, seeing that Jakobsen kind of faded further deeper into the Tour de France? Or would you still go with Jakobsen?
One thing's for certain, I don't think Merlier would be winning the opening stage of that race around Bilbao. But I don't. Yeah, that's a hard one because I just don't think Jakobsen's hit full flight yet. This isn't saying that Jakobsen's just like washed or something right now. He's just struggling at the moment, and sprinters come around, and it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest, if Merlier did get put down. I mean, when Cav got taken to the Tour and then won 3 stages, that was a fairly late call up, as far as I can remember. So it wouldn't surprise me if Quickstep just changed tune and decided to take Merlier instead.
4 victories. That's why
Was
he
it
did
4?
that. He did that.
My God, that's crazy. I thought it was 3. Oh my God, well,
Manx missile.
Excuse me.
Well, I mean, Merlier is no stranger to sharing a team, riding in the 2021 Tour de France with both Jasper Philipsen and Mathieu van der Poel in the squad. He could slot into this team. But the thing is, him and Jakobsen are so similar. It's not like sort of Philipsen and Merlier, where Philipsen's a little bit hardier than the Merlier, can go over more hills, whereas Merlier and Jakobsen both put them over a speed hump and they'll get dropped. So, I mean, they don't really bring different things to the table. Jakobsen's been struggling to follow the wheel of Michael Marco throughout the beginning of this season, which is a worrying sign, given that he's one of the best lead-out men in the world. So we'll wait and see. We haven't properly seen Marco and Merlier work together yet, I don't think.
Yeah. Which almost makes Merlier's victories so far this season all the more impressive that he has been without the mythical Michael Murkoff.
But I think we're not quite convinced that he's the best sprinter in the world, but maybe right now. Nevertheless, Paris-Nice, as we mentioned, Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard. Is this the best rivalry in cycling right now in terms of GC? I'm not kind of much going to point what they're not, because that is a fantastic rivalry. But Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard, the rivalry kind of started in a way at the Tour of the Basque Country in 2021, then the Tour de France, we know, 2022 as well, and then Tirreno as well last year. That was, went completely in the favor of Tadej Pogačar. He was so dominant there. But now here, Paris-Nice, both of them debutants, and then this Tour de France coming into it. Is this the kind of the Greg LeMond, the Bernard Hinault, even though that's not really true because they were on the same team at one point? Is this Andy Schleck, Contador kind of thing, but a bit more similar kind of riders to some respect?
I kind of think it is, which is very exciting because we go through these phases in cycling where you do get the clash of titans. Of course, it hasn't always been that way. You know, the Froome era, we were all very aware of Froome's dominance. Yes, there were people who came and went who challenged him, like a Quintana, which I know is a little bit sketchy, perhaps, considering what he's doing. But anyway, glossing over that, like Contador and others, Froome has been challenged, but it's the first time in a while where we've really had an absolute kind of mano a mano, really kind of trading punches, and you're not quite too sure who's going to be coming out on top when you bash them together. I feel like what's quite interesting is that Remco doesn't really have that with anyone. Remco doesn't really have this rivalry, does he?
You say that Sasha Vlasov. It's been covered extensively on the Cycling Day main channel. I've got a mini rant about how Sasha Vlasov keeps doing Remco Evenepoel. That's the secret rivalry no one's talking about.
But like the Contador Andy Schleck, obviously, I love that rivalry. It's my two favorite riders, and that was kind of 2009, 2010. Sort of 2011, but Contador was coming back off the back of the 2011 Giro, and then he had his whole 2010 aftermath that he was putting into that Tour de France. But so that's 3 Tour de France is where they kind of went head to head. Here, next year, or this year's Tour de France, that's going to be 3, and we're potentially going to see 4, 5, 6, because they're still very young, these two.
Yeah.
What's going to change? Sure. Like, nothing's going to change. These two, maybe a Remco can be in the conversation as well, but these two are firmly the strongest 2 riders, and they're relatively young as well.
I mean, I hope that it is like this, and like you say, maybe Remco will come into the equation as well. I see really only the thing, like you were saying, what's going to change. I see really it being UAE changing as a team to perhaps acquire some different talents, because I think at the moment people can quite unanimously agree that Jumbo-Visma is stronger than UAE Team Emirates in terms of domestiques. I mean, come on, they've got Wout van Aert, and like Roglic gets put into a domestique role, Sepp Kuss, Kruijswijk, McNulty, Soler, Majka. It's like Majka's going to be
That's a strong
retiring.
team. I'm defending UAE here.
But
what's happening, Ewan?
Mano a mano, I think that Jumbo-Visma are stronger, and I think the way that this will change is that UAE get even stronger to come up to the same level as Jumbo. And at that point, I think that Pogacar could become more dominant, because Pogacar really lacks that person who's like I know they've got Trentin, but they lack the Wout van Aert sort of cobbled master kind of jack of all trades who can be there at his side.
He doesn't need them.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, true. Maybe he just doesn't need them.
Exactly that. But I think Jumbo-Visma, as you say, sort of have more of these Swiss Army knife kind of riders. Christophe Laporte, Wout van Aert, Tish Benoot as well. Now Jan Tratnik is definitely a new Swiss Army knife to add to their collection. Where UAE don't quite have the same. They have a lot of strong climbers, but not sort of riders who you can rely on to be everywhere and also be there in a time trial. Miguel Biel maybe, but they're signing more guys in the sort of Swiss Army knife vein. I'm looking towards Tim Wellens, who's great over many terrains, quite similar to Jan Tratnik. They're getting in these guys to try to match Jumbo-Visma. I think on a brute uphill force, UAE are a stronger team. We saw that at Planche de Belfi last year.
I mean, I can get on board with, UAE are probably stronger uphill, but I think, like you say, that Jumbo, I think, over the other rolling terrain, and basically, if you were to put me into a team and you're saying it's going to be a crosswind day, I'm taking Jumbo-Visma every day of the week, because I just don't think that UAE have the talent. But that's not saying that they won't do in the future. That's where UAE will improve, and I think that Pogacar could become more dominant than Jonas. Because I think that as a rider, I prefer, well, preferring doesn't really have much to do with it. I think that Pogacar is more spontaneous and therefore more likely to take the spontaneous leaps, which could get him into a more favourable race position. I feel like Jonas is more calculated, and I feel like Pogacar overall is the better racer, which could be more beneficial.
Or Majka tells him to get on with it, as he did at La Plage.
I agree, 100%. Pogacar's the better racer. I think he's there contending classic profiles, hilly days. He can sprint pretty well. Jonas can't do that. I think even today in Paris-Nice, we saw Pogacar's kick there got him the 6 seconds that Vingegaard didn't get. I said it in the Cycling Day preview over on the Extra channel that Pogacar's going to sweep up these bonus seconds because he's got that kick. And in a race like Paris-Nice, that's super important. Maybe the Tour de France, it's less important because it's a longer race. There's more opportunity for bigger gaps to be made. But in sort of 1 week long stage racing, I feel like Pogacar might have that edge. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a rivalry for years to come. Probably one of the most exciting rivalries we've had. This is kind of everything we wanted and more from the Pog and Rog battle that never really was. Two guys from these two sort of mega teams going at it. It doesn't quite have the same narrative as the Pog and Rog narrative of them being from the same country. One's old, one's young. But I think Vingegaard and Pogacar, they're very different guys, but there's a mutual respect between them that I think is very honorable. Even today in Paris-Nice, we saw it. They fist bump before the beginning of the stage. They were talking during the stage. It doesn't feel as tense as sort of Schleck and Contador, or to some extent Hinault and Le Monde. It feels quite cordial between them, which probably points towards it there being more sort of fun racing, where it's not sort of spiteful, if you get what I mean. It's not going to be controversial.
Great.
I'll say that.
Spiteful's great. The drama, the intrigue. But yeah, you're right. They're both really nice guys. And it is the fact that we're not seeing a Chris Froome Quintana, where it's kind of like Quintana beats him in a stage where Froome loses 10 seconds maybe, but he wins every single tour. They have beaten each other. And Ewan mentioned that in a previous episode, that Pogacar actually was human for the first time in his whole career. And okay, there is the asterisk that UAE kind of imploded because of COVID and all this, so he's very isolated as well. But the fact that they've beaten each other makes this so much more exciting. Whereas the Andy Schleck Contador, there was kind of, I know Andy Schleck is the 2010 winner. I shouldn't do that because he is, but it's not like he destroyed Contador in a one-on-one battle. The mythical Tourmalet stage, he never put Contador in trouble, whereas here we never know what could happen. Yeah,
true, but maybe we're sniffing too much into the one Tour de France we've seen them both clash at. I'm sorry, I don't really count 2021 as being a rivalry. Pogacar was 5 minutes ahead of Vingegaard.
Yeah, that's true as well.
And the one time Pogacar challenged on Ventoux, Pogacar came back. He actually beat him in on the stage.
That was not a drop. I'm sorry. Like, there was so many videos about Pogacar got dropped. He did not get dropped. Like,
I don't take the Basque Country argument from 2021. That was Pog and Rog, and Vingegaard happened to be in a good place. He was being used as a teammate there.
Marking duties, yeah.
We've only seen the real sort of Pogacar and Vingegaard once at a Grand Tour setting.
But anyway, with that drawing to a conclusion, we're coming to our favorite part of the show, and that is our rider of the week. We don't have to ask Patrick. We all know. Yorkshireman winning, automatic. Yeah. Okay, go on, Patrick. Who's your rider of the week? Shock us.
It's Tom Pidcock. There you go.
Oh, what a shock.
Read me like a book.
Oh, stop the presses.
Tell Oxford. Yeah.
Ewan, who's your rider of the week? Madouas, probably. Like, you two are becoming too predictable.
Well, I'm not going to be predictable. I'm going to say Milan Menton. I think he won Le Samin, beating some real strong contenders like Ugo Hofstetter, Alberto Dainese, and so forth. He won that race, and then he went on to finish second place at one of the Belgian Classics during the week as well, in quite a fierce sprint, which was won by Sam Welsford. So I think Milan Menton is definitely showing some good form, and he's also moved to a new team, and he's hit the ground running at Lotto Destiny, which is really, really good to see for the guy from Limburg, up the Limburg.
I mean, yeah, Sam Welsford could have equally been one of our riders of the week. But, well, I'm going biased as well. Andreas Stockport, he's took his first victory for a new team. I'm going to go the Danish route. Sorry, guys. He's a very nice guy. So, Andreas Stockport.
We'll have to shake it up next time.
Ewan actually was the only one who wasn't predictable.
Yeah, well played, Ewan. Well played.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's the one who maintains his respect and dignity.
Madouas was too low-hanging fruit, I'll say that.
Nance Peters, that could have been one. Trofeo La Gualia. We didn't really talk about that. But so anyways, that's it for our 6th episode of the Echelon Cycling Podcast. If you would rather, make sure to check us out on all the different platforms that are all down below in terms of, from going from Spotify to Amazon Podcast. And comment down below what you thought of this week's episode in any matters. We always love to get involved in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.